I didn't expect the question. Not that night, not from her. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, the TV playing something neither of us was actually watching. The apartment was quiet in that heavy way that only comes when two people have already said everything obvious and are circling around what really matters. She kept twisting the ring on her finger, not nervously, thoughtfully, like someone replaying a decision in their head. Then she looked at me, not the casual glance she'd given me 100 times before, but the kind of look that holds you in place, the kind that makes you stop breathing for half a second. "I want a baby," she said, just like that. No build-up, no smile, no apology. The room felt smaller. I laughed at first, not because it was funny, but because my brain didn't know what else to do. "Okay," I said slowly. "That's not where I thought this conversation was going." She didn't laugh back. "I'm serious." I could tell. Her voice didn't shake. Her eyes didn't move. This wasn't a test or a joke or a half-formed idea. This was something she had been carrying alone for a long time. I leaned back, trying to buy myself time. "You mean someday?" She shook her head. "I mean now." That word landed between us like a dropped glass. Now. I stared at the wall behind her, my thoughts tripping over each other. We weren't married. We weren't even officially together, at least not in the way people like to label things. We had history, messy, complicated, unfinished history, but this was something else. "Why me?" I asked quietly. She exhaled, finally breaking eye contact. "Because I trust you, because you know me, because you won't disappear." That last part hit harder than I expected. I thought about all the men she could have asked. Men with steadier lives, clearer plans, cleaner paths. I wasn't the obvious choice, which meant she had thought about this very carefully. I rubbed my hands together. "You're asking me to change my entire life." "I know," she said. "I'm asking you to change mine too." Silence stretched between us. I could hear the refrigerator hum. A car passed outside. Somewhere, someone else was living a perfectly normal night, unaware that my world had just tilted off its axis. I thought of my own childhood, the things my father had done right, the things he hadn't, the promises I'd made to myself about never becoming him, and the fears that maybe I would anyway. "I don't even know if I'd be good at it," I said. She looked at me again, softer this time. "Nobody does." I swallowed. "And if I say no?" Her shoulders lifted slightly, then fell. Then I'll find another way. But I wanted to ask you first." First, not only. That mattered. I stood up and paced the room, my heart pounding like it was trying to outrun my thoughts. This wasn't just about a baby. It was about responsibility, permanence, the kind of choice you don't get to undo. I stopped in front of her. "When you say help me," I said carefully, "what exactly do you mean?" She didn't flinch. "I mean, I want you to be the father." There it was. No room left for misunderstanding. I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. "I didn't plan on becoming a dad," I said. "I didn't plan on asking," she replied. "Life doesn't care about plans." She was right. That was the problem. We talked for hours after that, about money, about work, about what would happen if we tried and failed, or tried and succeeded and everything went wrong anyway. We talked about expectations, boundaries, what kind of involvement she wanted, what kind I was afraid of promising. At some point, the conversation slowed. The tension shifted from panic to something quieter, heavier, real. I realized something then. She wasn't asking for a fantasy. She wasn't asking me to save her, or complete her, or give her a fairy tale family. She was asking me to show up. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not someone desperate, but someone brave enough to want something deeply and say it out loud. "I need time," I said. She nodded. "Take it." I didn't go home that night, not because she asked me to stay, but because I didn't trust myself to think clearly alone. I lay awake on her couch, staring at the ceiling, imagining a future I'd never allowed myself to picture before. A small hand wrapped around my finger, a voice calling me something I'd never been called. Dad. By morning, I knew the truth. I was already standing at the edge. The only question was whether I'd step forward or back away. Over coffee, she watched me quietly, not pressing, not pleading. I set the mug down. If I do this, I said, I do it for real. No half in, half out. No disappearing when it gets hard. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. I wouldn't accept anything less. I took a breath. Then I guess I'm becoming a father. She closed her eyes just for a moment, like someone letting go of a weight they'd been carrying alone. Nothing magical happened after that. No music, no perfect clarity, just reality, doctor appointments, awkward conversations with friends, long nights where fear crept back in and asked me if I was out of my mind. Some days I was sure I'd made a mistake. Other days I felt something new, something steady, settling into place. We didn't rush into pretending we were something we weren't. We learned as we went. We argued. We laughed. We scared ourselves with how much there was to lose. And then one afternoon she came home holding a small white stick in her hand, her smile trembling. I didn't need her to say anything. I just pulled her into my arms. That was the moment it became real. Not when she asked, not when I answered, but when I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. I don't know what kind of father I'll be. I don't know what kind of family we'll become. But I know this. One question changed everything. And for the first time in my life, I didn't run from the answer. I used to think the hardest part would be the decision. I was wrong. The hardest part came later, in the quiet moments, when there was no dramatic question to answer, no clear line to cross, just responsibility day after day, settling into my bones. People reacted differently when we told them. Some smiled too quickly. Some asked questions they had no right to ask. Some congratulated us like we were following a script instead of writing one from scratch. My mother stared at me for a long second before saying, "Are you sure?" I didn't say yes right away. "I'm committed," I said instead. She nodded slowly, like she understood the difference. Work changed too. Suddenly, time mattered in a way it never had before. I stopped staying late just because I could. I noticed how loud the world felt, how fast everything moved. It was like my body already knew something was coming and was preparing itself. She changed as well. Not dramatically, not in the way movies show it. Just little things. The way she rested her hand on her stomach when she thought no one was looking. The way she paused before climbing stairs. The way her laughter softened like she was learning a new rhythm. We talked more honestly than we ever had before. About fear, about resentment, about what would happen if love never came, but responsibility did. "I don't need a promise you'll love me forever," she said one night. "I need to know you won't disappear when it gets uncomfortable." That word again, disappear. I realized then how many men in her life had mastered that move, how practiced she was at bracing herself for absence. "I'm here," I said, and for once it didn't feel like something I had to convince myself of. The first ultrasound was quiet. The room was dim, the screen blurry, the technician calm in that professional way that somehow made everything feel more serious. Then there it was, a flicker. "That's the heartbeat," the technician said. I felt something crack open in my chest. Not joy, not fear, recognition. Something inside me whispered, "This is yours." I squeezed her hand without realizing it. She squeezed back. Driving home, neither of us spoke. There was nothing to add. Words felt too small for what had just happened. Later that night, I sat alone on my balcony, the city glowing below me, and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. The fear didn't disappear, but it stopped controlling the room. I thought about the man I'd been before that night on the couch, the version of me who believed freedom meant avoiding anything that could tie me down. I understood now how incomplete that definition was. Freedom, I realized, wasn't the absence of responsibility. It was choosing what was worth carrying. We didn't suddenly become a perfect family. There were arguments that ended in silence. Nights when exhaustion turned small issues into big ones. Moments where I missed the simplicity of only worrying about myself. But there were also mornings where she smiled at me over breakfast, and I felt something steady, something earned. As her body changed, so did my sense of time. Weeks stopped feeling abstract. Every day felt like a step closer to someone I hadn't met yet, but already cared about in ways I couldn't fully explain. One evening she asked, "Are you scared?" I didn't lie. "Yes," I said, "but not of the same things anymore." She smiled. "Me too." We never talked much about that first night again. The question, the answer, it had become less important than everything that followed. But sometimes when the apartment was quiet, I'd think back to it, to how close I'd been to saying no, to how easily my life could have continued exactly as it was. And I felt grateful for her courage, for my hesitation, for the moment where everything could have gone either way. I don't know what kind of father I'll be, but I know this: I won't disappear. And sometimes that's how becoming a parent really begins. Not with certainty, but with staying.